I'd like to start off with this idea of orphan drugs, and for somebody who's never heard the term, and I have to admit I'm not quite familiar with it, I've heard Josh speak of it. Inform me a little bit.
Sure. Well, the idea is that there are a lot of diseases out there that are very rare, and they have a very small patient population. But that means that traditionally they've been sort of ignored by a lot of drug companies, because you look at it and think, well, this drug is going to be just as hard to develop as a drug that has a huge number of possible patients. Why should we go after this? So some years ago, there was an Orphan Drug Act passed, both in the U.S. and there's a similar one in the European Union. There's an Orphan Drug Act and a Rare Diseases Act, which give incentives for companies to do this. You get to get more exclusivity, no competition for 7 years, and you get some tax incentives for doing clinical trials, etc. So the idea was that now these things would have a little bit more of a level playing field.
Okay, so when it comes to Gaucher disease, we're seeing an orphan drug here that's being approved. Talk to me about what that means for the disease, what that means for companies.
Sure. Well, Gaucher's is not a very common disease, and there are some things for it right now. Pfizer has something for it, Shire, and also Actelion. There's several companies that have something, but the usual thing is an enzyme deficiency. Gaucher's is. These people just do not make enzyme that can do its job. So if you actually give people replacement enzyme, then they can lead a pretty normal life. And the usual one is Cerezyme and Beproof. These things all have to be taken IV, though, because enzymes are not something that you can take orally. They're large proteins, and if you take them as a pill, your stomach does what it does to other large proteins, like the ones from a hamburger. It tears them apart. So these enzyme replacements have to be given IV, which is a little bit more of a pain. So this new drug that's come out for Sanofi is actually a different sort of thing. It is an oral medication that actually seems to help out in Gaucher. So that could be something that patients who don't like the IV or who have a lot of difficulty, say, getting to some sort of clinical setting where they can get the IV, they could take this pill in theory and also have benefit for their disease. And that's where the actual market is.
So what then is the controversy? Is there a controversy surrounding the pill? Is it costly? How does that work?
I don't know if the price has been set yet, but I suspect it's going to be, because they're talking about roughly the price of the IV once every couple of weeks, and that comes out to about $300,000 a year. Now, the company is saying that they want to do this so that it's just about the same price, and they're not going to, as they put it, bias any medical decisions. You can, read into that what you will. But this is the same controversy that all drug prices have. In theory, a price is what people will pay. And if insurance companies will pay this, and if Sanofi, the company that's developed this pill, has looked over the insurance market and decided that, yes, they'll pay $300,000 for enzyme infusions, clearly, because they're doing it now, so they'll pay $300,000 for this, which seems to be just as good. Not everyone's happy with this.
What does this mean for orphan drugs in general? I mean, does this prompt other companies to look into other rare diseases? Does it prompt other companies to spend money to develop something like this?
Oh, a lot of companies have been doing this for some years now. Genzyme, which is now part of Sanofi, Genzyme made its entire company targeting diseases like this and really showed that it was possible. So a lot of people have noticed this over the years, and a lot of companies are looking in this area, especially small to medium-sized companies. A company that needs billions and billions in revenue every year, like a Pfizer, is going to be a little bit less enthusiastic because they'd have to assemble quite a portfolio of orphan drugs. But a small to medium-sized company could do very well with this. So it's not a new thing. People have been looking at this for a while. Now, you have to wonder, eventually, is there going to be some pricing pushback on these things?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the one thing that could alter the landscape. But for now, the legislation years ago was there to say, all right, here are some incentives for you people to come after these things, and people have, and this is the result.
Quite the difference from antibiotics, right?
It is. And the thing is, antibiotics, it is different because a lot of people have tried antibiotics over the years, and frankly, a lot of the low-hanging fruit is already gone in that area. A lot of the really good ideas for new antibiotics have not worked. And if you screen for them, if you just say, okay, let's just screen 1 million compounds for a new antibiotic, you find 1 million compounds, most of which do nothing, many of which kill bacteria, but also kill regular cells. And then when you get down to the ones that only kill the bacteria, you find that all of them, or almost all of them, work by mechanisms we already have, like penicillin, or tetracycline, or cephalosporins, or whatever, and those aren't going to be much good either. So antibiotics, that's been a tough area. But the orphan diseases are often mechanisms that no one has looked at yet, or in great detail. So they're a new field, and the low-hanging fruit hasn't been picked.
Gotcha. And I imagine it's in trials, it's perhaps easier to find participants who had not previously received
the participants because they're often disease organizations, they're patient organizations, the National Whatever Disease Association, there are patient registries. You know, there aren't a tremendous number of people out there with Gaucher's disease who don't know they have Gaucher's disease.